Hello, welcome to It's Not for Black Women Only. We're the women of the National Council of Negro Women. This segment is Poetry in Motion. We're going to hear from some of the women in the Black Women's Ensemble. First, I'm going to introduce to us our co-host, Karol Woods Thomas, who is going to tell us a little bit about what effect Black women have had on poetry and what effect the poetry has had on Black women.
Hello, Wanda. I'm glad to be here today to bring to you this group of women, and they are Black women. All of them are over the age of 30 years, and they have a life story of Black history in poetry. And as you know, that poetry of Black women and Black poetry period, it ties in tightly with the blues and also with country western music because it all tells a story. And basically, it's something that they have experienced themselves. The poets that has written this is a life experience.
It kind of reminds me when you said the blues, because Maya Angelou reading her poems, it sounds like and it feels like the blues. And it's interesting because it's so unique that it tells a story of Black women and the history of Black women, the way she places it. And you can tell it has an effect because the president asked her to read a poem at the inauguration.
That's correct. And like I said, with a lot of it and most of it, it's the dealing of the lifestyle that has been passed on through our forefathers, our grandmothers, and so forth back through history. They tell these stories, and they're all true stories. And they're very heartwarming to know where we have come from, and that let you know that the sky's the limit, that we can do it, no matter how people, even our own race of people, they kick us, they stomp us, and whatnot. But hold your head up and keep going. It can be done.
And I think about our foreparents when during slavery they sort of used poetry. I guess that was in a sense of poetry when they would have to use signals for getting away and escaping and messages carried forth. They would maybe moan and groan or say things that kind of rhymed. So I think our history sort of speaks to
just the rhythm and rhyme of the music and the poetry. It all combines and join together, and it tells a story. And it was the hopes and the dreams of, that's mostly all they had to hang on to, plus God, and they wasn't really allowed to worship. So this was their dreams and their hopes to hold on to for a better future.
Okay, well, Karol, tell us something about the women who we're going to see in a few minutes.
Okay, we have with us the Black Women's Ensemble on Tour, and this group it consists of Black women that are over the age of 30, and they were joined together with a common denomination of poetry and the love for poetry and history. And they tell their stories through poems and rhymes and dance and song, and this is for the entertainment of the community and the gratification of themselves. And they do poems such as Paul Laurence Dunbar and Maya Angelou. And they were joined together in Pacoima, California, is where they made their debut. And they have done several church organizations and sorority benefits and Black History Weeks. So we have with us today the Black Women's Ensemble. And their motto is, all that I've ever hoped to be, I owe it all to God, and God be its glory.
Okay. I had one of the poets came to speak, and she did a Sojourner Truth, and I have never seen such accolades behind it. The performance was just tremendous. You need to go see these ladies when they perform. Later on in the show, I'm going to give the number so that people can get in touch with the ladies on tour.
Well, I personally asked for that, but she told me we already have a program, but I'm going to try to get her to do it.
Oh,
because it's a true story, and voting rights is what we need.
It is wonderful.
It's great.
We're going to try to get her to do it.
Well, maybe we can bribe her. She likes cookies and ice cream.
Okay. We have some cookies and ice cream for her afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, the Black Women Ensemble.
We are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. Philosophy, Paul Laurence Dunbar.
I've been thinking about the preacher and what he said the other night about it being people's duties to keep our faces bright, and how one ought to live so pleasant that your tempers never rouse, while meeting everybody with our very nicest smiles. Well, now, that's all right. I ain't sputin', would seem to be a fact, but you don't catch folk grinning when they misery in their backs, and you don't catch folks smiling when they hungry as can be. At least, that's how human nature seems to appear to be to me. And we's all pretty most likely to have our little cares. And I think that we're doing first rate when we goes along and bears without breaking up our faces in some old sickly sort of grin. When you know that in your innards you is purty mad as sin. And there's a time for being pleasant and a time for smiling round. I don't believe that folks should always tote around a frown, but it's easy enough to titter when the stew is smoking hot. But it's mighty hard to giggle when there ain't nothing in the pot.
When I think about myself, Maya Angelou.
When I think about myself, I almost laugh myself to death. My life has been one big joke. Now, it's a dance that's walk and a song that's spoke, and I laugh so hard till I almost choke when I think about myself. 60 years in these folks' world, and the child I work for calls me girl. And I say, yes, ma'am, for working's sake, 'cause I'm too poor to bend, but I'm too proud to break. And I laugh so hard till my stomach aches when I think about myself. But when I think about my folks, they can make me split my side. The tales they tell seem most like lying. They grow the fruit, but they eat the rind. And I laugh so hard till I started crying when I think about my folk.
On aging, Maya Angelou.
When you see me sitting quietly, like a sack left on a shelf, don't think I need your chattering. I'm just listening to myself. Hold stop, don't pity me. Hold stop your sympathy. Understanding if you got it, otherwise I'll do without it. When my bones are stiff and aching, and my feet won't climb the stair, I'll only ask one favor, and that's don't bring me no rocking chair. When you see me walking, stumbling, don't study and get it wrong, 'cause tired don't mean lazy, and every goodbye ain't gone. I'm the same person I was back then. A little less hair, a little less chin, much less lungs, and a lot less wind. But ain't I lucky? I can still breathe in.
Myself, Edgar A. Guest.
I have to live with myself, and so I want to be fit for myself to know. I want to be able, as days go by, always to look myself straight in the eye. I don't want to keep on a closet shelf a lot of secrets about myself and fool myself as I come and go into thinking that nobody will ever know the kind of person I really am. I don't want to dress up myself in sham. I want to go out with my head erect. I want to deserve all men's respect, But here in the struggle for fame and pelf, I want to be able to like myself. I see what others may never see, and I know what others may never know. So whatever happens, I want to be self-respecting and conscience-free.
What if I am a black woman? Is it a sin? Well, then please pray for me. And pray for you too if you do not like women of color. Because we are midnight black, chestnut brown, honey bronze, chocolate covered, big lips, big breast, and beautiful all at the very same time. Black Women Ensemble.
That was a wonderful way to tell our story, wasn't it?
Great.
Oh, they're wonderful. Oh, you're going to have to go see them whenever they perform. We're going to give you the number later on. But I want Jackie to tell us the story that Sojourner Truth told us back in 1850 when she spoke to the women in Akron, Ohio about the women's rights issues. And that's an issue that's back in the forefront today because they're trying to set us back, as you know, politics is my thing. They're trying to set us back into those days of Sojourner Truth. So we're going to ask Jackie Sharia to tell us the story of Sojourner Truth.
1850 in Akron, Ohio. The Women's Rights Convention was in progress, and people had come from miles around to discuss whether or not women should be given the right to vote. Women at that time were considered to be one half a person, and Negroes and slaves were even less. 1/4 of a person. What is 1/4 of a person? Several ministers had tried to use the Bible to justify their reasons for not wanting women to vote. One had said that because God had made woman to be the weaker sex, she was not capable mentally or physically of carrying out the right to vote. Another had said that because Eve was the first person to sin, all women should be punished and not given the right to vote. Women at that time were afraid to speak out in public. They were afraid to disagree with men. But one woman that had listened to this rhetoric for 3 days stood at the back of the church. The only black woman in the congregation came forth. Making her way down the outside wall of the church, she came forth against the hissing and the booing of the congregation because they did not want to be associated with black folks' rights. She came forth. This illiterate daughter of a slave, this uneducated woman came forth, and taking the only available seat, she sat at the bottom of the pulpit. She sat and she listened. She waited and she listened, hoping to catch the eye of the Congresswoman, Frances Gage. She sat and she listened until finally she was simply introduced as Sojourner Truth. Slowly, she arose, removing her bonnet, deliberately folding it. The hissing and the booing of the congregation subsided. She placed it at the bottom of the steps. She took a stand. Slowly, she spoke. Well, children, where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. And I think that between the Negroes of the North and the women of the South all are talking about women's rights, the white man is gonna be in a fix pretty soon. But what is all of this about anyway? The little man over there in black, he says that women need to be helped in the carriages, and they need to be lifted over mud puddles, and they need to be given the best seats anywhere. Well, I ain't never been lifted into no carriages. I ain't never been toted over no mud puddles, and I sure ain't been given no best seats nowhere. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at these arms. I have plowed, and I have planted, and I have gathered into barns, and no man could head me. I could outwork any man, and I could out-eat him too, when I could get it. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children, and I done seen most all of them sold into slavery. And when I cried out with a mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? And this little man over there, he says that it's got something to do with this thing in the head. Now, what is that called? I think he said something about intellect. Yeah, that's it. It's intellect. Now, what does intellect have to do with women's rights or Negroes' rights? Now, if my measure, if it holds a pint and yours holds a quart, now wouldn't you be mighty selfish not to let me have my little half measure full? And this little man over there, he says that women don't need to have as much rights as man because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Now, he came from God and a woman. Man didn't have nothing to do with him. Now, if the first woman that God ever made was strong enough to turn this world upside down all by herself, then all of these women here together, they ought to be able to turn it around and get it right side up again. And now that they is a asking to do it, y'all had better let them. I tell you, y'all had better let them. Soon I will be done with the trouble of this world, trouble of this world, with the trouble of this world. Soon I will be done with the trouble of this world. I'm going home to live with my Lord. No more weeping, no more weeping and wailing, no more weeping, no more weeping and wailing, no more weeping, no more weeping and wailing. I'm going home to live with my Lord. Soon I will be done with the troubles of this world, all troubles of this world, troubles be done with the troubles of this world, and I'm going home to live with my Lord.
Very heartwarming.
Is that wonderful? Great. You see, that's poetry. That's poetry
In motion.
in motion. Now, you know, that goes back to our church. Poetry goes back to the ministers. Black ministers tend to go, they have a rhythm to their preaching.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll notice, one of the things they say in history with black audiences is that we have to respond. That's one of the things that they think is wrong in education, that we don't get the opportunity. The system is a little bit different, that we don't get a chance to like respond. The minister says something and it's amen. If you go into an audience of black people, they always respond. And most of the time it's rhythmic, like the poetry.
It's the flow of the music and the poetry, and as the song she sang, it was nothing but poetry. And there's a story in the song, and poetry is telling a story.
Now that was Ain't I a Woman? Now I like that.
Ain't I a Woman? That's a very broad subject. It could be discussed for days, because I feel that I am very much of a woman, and I am just as strong as any other human being, not just a woman. I may not be physically as strong, but as far as mental stability, I feel that I am just as strong. Now, I can be like Sir John and go out there and do that man's day's work in the field, and after bearing us 13 kids or whatnot. I don't think they made women like they used to, as it's said. But as per se, as far as knowledge and wisdom and as to having the brain, I feel that I can compete basically with any man in that standings, white, black, orange, or whatever.
I can bring home the bacon.
I can bring the bacon home.
And fry it in the pan.
That's right, and put it on the table.
And still, ain't I a woman?
And ain't I a woman?
Yeah, I want to give out the number to the National Council of Negro Women, so that you may get in touch with the National Council of Negro Women if you're interested in membership in the Glendale-Burbank-Pasadena area, as well as the number for you can get information on how to get the poets to come, and they're on tour, so they're available for speaking engagements, and individually or as a group, and there are others of them, and they are dynamite.
They're great.
Okay, the number is 818-240-3714. That's 818-240-3714. And that's for the National Council of Negro Women. And that Sojourner Truth, the women like Sojourner Truth, and our president or our founder, Mary McLeod Bethune, those women are role models for us.
Yes, and it took a lot of courage for those women to stand up during that day.
Yes.
Even nowadays, as far as a black woman, it takes courage for us to stand up and speak our piece. Although we're educated, that woman was not educated, but yet and still she had enough courage, a nerve, a backbone, however you want to put it, to stand up before this audience. And from my understanding, she was the only black woman in the congregation. She stood up and spoke.
And when history sort of talks about women and voting rights, they kind of ignore the fact that there was a black segment of that voting rights, and when they marched for the voting rights issues, after a period of time, the white movement, women's movement, separated itself from the black women's movement because they said that they were not getting attention from the men, or it might cause sort of anger because it was coupled with the black issue and the black women's issue. So therefore they sort of separated themselves out during that period of time. And so the white women moved for the voting rights, and then there was also another side of the story of the women's voting rights. Now we remember the movie, what was that Cecily Tyson made, where she had to lead the voting rights to the booth after she'd gotten to be, I think, about 100 years old or so, and that was very much the way it was in those days. They were doing it, they were voting, and Sojourner Truth and Mary McLeod Bethune was in the background there.
And the women are finding nowadays that it is not just for black women only. We're going back to our title. You know, we have to bond together to get this movement going. You know, it's for all women. We're not here just for black women.
Those women in those days did the same thing. They had to publicly, as I was talking about, maybe sort of kind of make a public statement that we're dealing with those issues for the women. White women only, but they were together, and today it's the same thing. I think one of the best things about the poetry is that it tells it without anger. It makes you understand what it is that they're saying if you read it. Now, I remember a young lady says, they have a poetry club at one of the schools, and the young lady was saying that I don't want to join the poetry club. What is the poetry club going to do for me? That's a geek club, you know. But
it's the history.
It's
the history, and it's a great way to learn the history. Me, myself, when I was in school, I didn't care that much for history. But it's like the rap songs now. If they would take some of those rap songs and make the history out of it or relate the history to it in a positive way, the kids would pick it up much faster. Because it has a beat to it.
It has a beat.
And
it has
with
the
that
same
beat, and they pick this beat up, and it's a rhythm and a rhyme, and you learn much faster.
And there were great poets, black women poets. And we brought you this evening some of the greatest black women poetesses of our day. And if you'd like to get in touch with them, please call us. And please call National Council of Negro Women and join our membership. Thank you. Good night.